Nihal, and at the outset I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. So today we will be discussing about updates on nephrotic syndrome, and all these updates would be in accordance with the Indian Society of Pediatric Nephrology 2021 guidelines. So we will be discussing about certain important definitions, evaluation of a patient of nephrotic syndrome, treatment of the initial episode and relapse, a brief approach to a child with frequent relapses and steroid dependence. We usually do a spot urine protein to creatinine ratio, which is more than or equal to 2, defines nephrotic range proteinuria. So earlier guidelines used to include hyperlipidemia or a serum cholesterol more than 200 mg per deciliter, also as an essential criteria for nephrotic syndrome, but the recent ISPS guidelines do not call it as an essential criteria. Depending upon the age of onset, the nephrotic syndrome can be congenital, which usually presents within the first 3 months of life, infantile, which usually presents within the first year, and childhood nephrotic syndrome, which presents after 1 year of age. So most of the cases of nephrotic syndrome are idiopathic. However, in 5 to 10% of the cases, we get the nephrotic syndrome, which is secondary to certain infections, drugs, autoimmune diseases, or malignancy. If we talk about the pathology, the kidney biopsy reveals minimal change disease in 80% of the patients, while 7 to 8% each may have focal segmental glomerular sclerosis or mesangial-proliferative glomerular nephritis. Considering the natural history of nephrotic syndrome in children, about 85% of the cases are steroid sensitive, which may be either infrequent relapses to the tune of 30 to 50%, frequent relapses in about 20 to 30% of the cases, and steroid dependent in again 20 to 30% of the cases. About 15% of the cases may be steroid resistant, and this has a poor prognosis if we talk about nephrotic syndrome, because as much as 50% progress to end-stage kidney disease within 5 to 8 years of the diagnosis. A few patients of about 3 to 6%, which are steroid sensitive at the onset, may progress to a steroid-resistant disease as he progresses. So, keeping in mind this, that in clinical practice, the response to steroids is the most important prognostic factor if we treat the nephrotic syndrome. This is the table showing the comparison of the ISPN 2021 guidelines to the previous guidelines. I am not going into detail with this, but we will discuss each step as we proceed further. So coming to some important definitions which we need to know, we call a child is in remission if the urine protein is nil or trace, or a spot urine protein or creatinine ratio less than 0.2 for 3 consecutive early morning specimens. A patient is said to be in relapse if he has a urine protein more than or equal to 3 plus for 3 consecutive early morning specimens in a patient who was in remission previously. The relapse can be frequent if we are dealing with 2 or more relapses in the first 6 months after stopping the initial therapy, or more than 4 relapses in 1 year. Steroid dependence is called when the patient has 2 consecutive relapses when on alternate day steroids or within 14 days of its discontinuation. A patient is said to be having steroid resistance if he shows steroid resistance. If the child is on prolonged therapy with calcineurin inhibitors like cyclosporin and tacrolimus, or there is reduced kidney function during their use, and some advocated before initiating therapy with calcineurin inhibitors because these agents usually cause tubular interstitial fibrosis in the long run, so we need to have a prognostic indicator at the baseline. Light microscopy and immunofluorescence examination is needed on all kidney biopsies, and though recommended in all, electron microscopy is specially required in patients who are having gross or microscopic hematuria at the onset, low C3 or suspected disorders of glomerular basin membrane. Now, how do we treat an initial episode of nephrotic syndrome? So the current guidelines state that the treatment of choice is prednisolone, which is given at a dose of 60 mg per meter square per day or 2 mg per kg per day to a maximum of 60 mg for 6 weeks. And after this daily therapy, it is followed by an alternate day therapy at the rate of 40 mg per meter square per day or 1.5 mg per kg for 6 weeks again, which is then discontinued. So this has been, the duration of therapy has been a matter of debate across the previous guidelines. Some say a duration of 4 plus 4, some say 6 plus 6. So according to the, again, ISPL 2021, we take it as 6 plus 6 weeks of therapy. If we come across a relapse, it is again treated with prednisolone, which is given at a dose of 60 mg per meter square per day until remission. Remission means again 3 consecutive early morning samples traced on Nilfer protein, and followed by that we give a course of 40 mg per meter square or 1.5 mg per kg on alternate days for 4 weeks. Lack of remission despite treatment with 6 weeks daily prednisolone indicates late steroid resistance. Coming to the management of frequent relapsing nephrotic syndrome or steroid dependent nephrotic syndrome, the initial strategy is to administer prednisolone at a dose of 0.5 to 0.7 mg per kg on alternate days, which is gradually tapered to 0.2 to 0.3 on alternate days over a period of 6 to 12 months. And along with that, if the child encounters a minor infection during treatment on alternate day therapy, then the same dose is given on daily basis for 5 to 7 days to cover for any chances of relapse. Now, certain cases in which the steroid threshold is more than 1 mg per kg on alternate days. Steroid threshold means that the minimum dose of steroids which is used to keep the child in remission. If that dose requirement is more than 1 mg per kg, or the child has had more than one complicated relapse. Complicated relapse is again nephrotic syndrome with a life-threatening complication of hypovolemia, severe life-threatening infections of thrombosis. And if the child is having significant steroid toxicity, then the agents of choice include mycophenolate mofetil or cyclophosphamide. However, if these features are not present, then we have to treat with levamisole or mycophenolate mofetil. So, because of the better safety profile of levamisole and mycophenolate, these drugs are preferred if there is no complications. Still, if the in those patients. So the indication of genetic tests are initial steroid resistance, very onset during infancy, or family history of steroid resistance, if the child has extrarenal features, is not showing response to calcineurin inhibitors, or prior to transplantation. In all other children, we prefer a kidney biopsy. So these are the therapeutic options available. First, treatment of choice is obviously calcineurin inhibitors, which include cyclosporine and tacrolimus. Another option is IV cyclophosphamide, and that is given only if there are certain contraindications to calcineurin inhibitors, including its adverse effects, or if the cost is prohibitory, then we can go for IV cyclophosphamide. The other treatments of choices, available options are mycophenolate and rituximab. So ISBN 2021 says that CNI calcineurin inhibitors are the first line therapy, and it suggests continuing therapy for at least 24 months if the child is showing at least partial or complete remission. It should be withheld or discontinued in patients with AKI stage 2 to 3 or an estimated GFR persistently below 60 ml per minute per meter square. If the child is said to be showing a non-response to calcineurin inhibitor if he still has nephrotic range proteinuria despite a 6 months therapy. So these agents usually show complete remission in 30 to 40% of the cases, and the partial or complete remission in 60 to 80% of the cases. Now, what is to be monitored is the drug levels. So a trough level of cyclosporine should be maintained at 80 to 120 nanogram per ml, and tacrolimus at 4 to 8 nanogram per ml for it to be effective. So after baseline evaluation, a kidney biopsy and genetic testing in certain specific situations, if we are dealing with a non-genetic disease, then we have to start with calcineurin inhibitors along with tapering doses of steroids. Along with that, supportive therapy in the form of ACE inhibitors is also given for proteinuria. The response is assessed at 6 months. If the child is showing response, then the therapy is continued and steroids are tapered. However, if the child does not show response, then we have to again rule out genetic disease and consider other options like rituximab or calcineurin inhibitors combined with mycophenolate. Again, in cases of non-response, we can switch to rituximab or mycophenolate mofetil, and if even on these agents the child is not showing any response, we have to withdraw all immunosuppression and the child is to be put on supportive management. Similarly, in monogenic diseases, we have to give supportive therapy if the child does not respond to immunosuppression, and the management is usually supportive along with the counseling for renal replacement therapy in these patients. So coming to the supportive care in nephrotic syndrome, which includes the treatment of edema, a diet which is usually advised to have a salt-restricted diet. The salt is to be restricted to up to 1 to 2 mg per gram per kg per day. Then the treatment of complications which include either infections or treatment-related complications, acute kidney injury, thromboembolism, impaired growth, hypertension, endocrine abnormalities, malnutrition and anemia, which is usually encountered in steroid-resistant disease. We have to take care of the immunization of the child, and very important is patient and parent education. So again, we have a case of a 3-year-old child coming to your OPD in relapse. The child has generalized swelling and his current weight is 16 kg, while his weight 3 months back was 13 kg. Now, how do we have to treat his edema? So edema, for treatment of edema, we have to classify edema as mild, moderate or severe. We say mild edema if the weight gain from the baseline is less than or equal to 7%. If the weight gain is 8 to 15%, it is moderate edema, and in more than 15%, it is severe edema. Steroid is the only treatment. Usually these patients start losing their edema by the end of 1 week. Along with that, there has to be dietary salt restriction. Other indications of therapeutic interventions with diuretics include moderate to severe edema and mechanical effects on respiration and abdomen, along with the previous history of difficult edema. So inducing remission is the best treatment for edema in nephrotic syndrome. Now in all patients presenting with edema, we have to first assess the volume status and rule out hypovolemia before starting the diuretic therapy. And this can be assessed by either post after discontinuing the treatment. If this therapy was given for more than 14 days, then you have to vaccinate 1 month after discontinuing the corticosteroids. If the child is on low to moderate dose prednisolone, then no vaccine, live vaccines have to be given until discontinuation of therapy. If the child is on low dose alternate day steroids and there is a pressing need for vaccination, then in certain specific circumstances, you can administer the live vaccine. The live vaccines have to be administered 1 month following discontinuation of calcineurin inhibitors, levodopa or mycophenolate, 3 months after stopping cyclophosphamide, and until after B cell recovery if you are treating with rituximab, which is around 6 to 9 months. The immunocompetent siblings and household contacts are not to be administered with oral polio vaccine, and the household contacts older than 1 year have to be administered influenza vaccine annually. If the child with nephrotic syndrome is exposed to varicella, if there is no contraindication to live vaccine, as we discussed earlier, we have to administer the varicella vaccine as soon as possible and preferably within 5 days. If the child has contraindication to live vaccine, then we have to give varicella zoster immunoglobulin, preferably within 10 days of treatment. The other options are oral acyclovir and IVIG, which is less effective. Then these specific vaccines, pneumococcal, varicella, influenza and Hep B have to be administered to all patients. Then the last but a very important part is counseling of parents, which has to be done at the diagnosis and at each follow-up. We have to explain the natural history of the disease, that the disease is naturally relapsing and steroid-sensitive disease usually have a good outcome despite the relapses. We have to explain about the adverse effects, the dosing, the duration of the medications we are giving and the need for compliance, home monitoring for poor proteinuria, importance of immunization, the diet and the follow-up, which includes compliance and maintenance service. So thank you for your patient hearing.
An lucid overview on nephrotic syndrome, which is a very important topic for our budding pediatricians.
Restriction of fluid intake in nephrotic syndrome. So if the output is okay and if you are using dialysis, then there's no need to restrict the fluids. Just we don't have to give any extra IV fluids if the patient will take a fluid.
So in the first episode when we have diagnosed, we told it is 6 plus 6. Usually the patients take first 6 weeks, then they discontinue. Then they come to us, is asymptomatic. Then what to do?
So if the patient has only taken a daily therapy, then we don't call it a complete treatment. And in some circumstances, if the child is coming to us with a relapse, then we can take it as a first episode and give the whole duration of therapy in that episode. That is a better approach.
6 plus 6.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just please keep the records proper.
Yes.
Because they just keep changing their doctors and until end up with a new doctor, and just the doctor doesn't know whether it is a steroid dependent or resistant or the incompliance.
A good advice will be to maintain a nephrotic diary in such patients, either to us or certain other doctors, so it's better to maintain a diary of these. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Kartika.
Good lecture on the model.
Dr. Manju Huda, our pediatrician at Civil Hospital. She is a very dedicated and hard-working pediatrician. So a round of applause for her. Dr. Samarth Arora. A round of applause for her. Dr. Bharat Kansal.